Page 618. Page 619. Page 620. Page 621. Page 622. Page 623. Page 624. Page 625. Page 626. Page 627. Page 628. Page 629. Page 630. Page 631. Page 632. Page 633. Page 634. Page 635. 636. 637. Page 638. Page 639. Santo Kabiru Gaya.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I move that the vote and proceedings of Wednesday, 10th October 2018 be hereby approved.
Senator Jeremiah Senior, Plateau South.
Mr. President, my colleagues, I am Senator General Jeremiah Tumbudu Seni,
Governor in waiting.
right to second
Governor in waiting.
that the voice and proceedings of Wednesday, 10 October 2018 should be approved. I so second.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the votes and proceedings on Wednesday, 10th October 2018 be approved, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 10th October 2018 hereby approved. Leader of the Senate.
Say it loud now.
Yes, point of order, Senator Porker.
Mr. President, I'm coming under 42 and 52. So permit, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. 52, Mr. President. Notice shall not be dispensed within the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, I think I did discuss with you on the subject matter of the demise of one of our brightest brain, Senator Brigidi, yesterday, and I told you I would like to bring a formal motion on that subject today. If you so allow, Mr. President, I will go ahead with the motion.
Thank you, Senator Poka. My distinguished colleagues, Senator Poka did mention this, and according to our rules, I'll seek the leave of our members to allow us to take this under for 1252. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Carry on, Senator Poka.
Mr. President, the Senate notes we chalk the demise of Senator David Brigidi on Sunday, 30th September 2018 at Goy's Cancer Center, London, at the age of 56 years. Senate recalls that the Senator Brigidi attended Benin Methodist Primary School, Western Ghana, and thereafter proceeded to the River State University of Science and Technology. Notes that Senator Brigidi, a successful lawyer, was also a top political leader and played various roles in the country. The country's return to democracy in 1998 died from complications arising from cancer, which he had bravely fought for several months. Note that the late Senator Brigidi was an entrepreneur and he owned the Career Oil and Gas Limited, among other corporate bodies. Aware that the Senator Brigidi was the pioneer chairman of INCP and later became the pioneer chairman of PDP in Bayelsa State. He represented Bayelsa Central Senatorial District in these red chambers from 1999 to 2007. As the youngest member of the Senate during his time, he was known for his vibrancy, sharp intellect, and bridge-building capacity. He was chairman of the Senate Committee on Petroleum, Upstream, and quite a number of committees which he was a member. Aware that Senator Brigidi contributed enormously to deepening the friendship between Nigeria and Ghana, his maternal home. He was a very successful businessman with investments in Nigeria, Ghana, and the rest of West Africa. Regrets that Senator Brigidi died at the time his services was most needed to the development of his state and indeed the nation. He just turned 56 years on 16 September 2018, few days before his death. Note that Senator Brigidi made his mark through his progressive and pro-people legislative intervention, particularly through the chairmanship of the Committee on Petroleum, which he was privileged to chair. He has many bills to his credit. Observe that Senator Brigidi stood up for the quality, articulation, and eloquence of his contribution to debate. Definitely, Mr. President, dear colleague, will surely miss his vibrancy and progressive mindset. May his gentle soul rest in peace. I so move, Mr. President.
Intelligence Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected colleagues, James Ebiowo, Manager, CON is my name. I represent Delta South. Mr. President, only very few surviving senators in these chambers today met Brigidi. I mean surviving senators on the floor of the Senate. Non-surviving senators in terms of life. Those of us who are surviving, who met Brigidi, I think it was between me and Senator Ekerimantu, the Deputy Senate President. Senator David Mann started it all with him from 1999, but my humble self and the Deputy Senate President, we met Brigidi in 2003. Brigidi was articulate. Brigidi means with everybody. Brigidi was intelligent. And Brigidi didn't hide his feelings on any national issue. Mr. President, it didn't take Brigidi more than 2 weeks when we came in here for him to get himself familiar with the new senators. Those who didn't know him before we got into this place, and those who knew him before we got into this place. Brigidi was man of the moment. Brigidi was everywhere. And Brigidi stood for excellence. Brigidi was an irrepressible senator. And Brigidi stood for the integrity of the institution of the Senate. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, I recall, and I'm sure Senator Ekerimantu, the Deputy Senate President, would also recall with pride that in those old days, when a particular minister, who is now governor under Obasanjo's regime, said certain things sarcastically about the institution of the Senate, and Brigidi was at the front, who moved that motion, that very famous motion, that particular minister must be sacked. And we gave the then President of Obasanjo 2 weeks within which to sack that minister. It was a very serious matter, Mr. President. Brigidi will be remembered for so many things, and all positive as far as I'm concerned. So it took the direct personal intervention of the then President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to cool down things between the executive and parliament. Mr. President, David Brigidi is now dead. He has died at the time when his services are most needed. He was just 56 years, and he was at his prime when he died. When he left the Senate in 2007, not much was heard about him. Apparently, because of this dual personality, dual citizenship, he was more in Ghana than Nigeria. So, talking as a person, I didn't see Brigidi between 2007 and when he finally died. But Brigidi will be remembered. Bayelsa West Senatorial District, the Bayelsa Central Senatorial District, which is represented today by Senator Emmanuel Porka, because he took over from him in 2007. We remember Senator Brigidi. Bayelsa State will remember Senator Brigidi. The John Nation will sorely miss Senator Brigidi. This Senate will miss Senator Brigidi. And I'm sure most of you civil servants, you met Brigidi here, and you understand what I'm talking about. And he was chairman of the Committee on Petroleum Resources. That today has been divided into 3. Upstream petroleum, downstream petroleum, and gas petroleum. In fact, he was a super chairman, super chairman, and he merited it. And so, on behalf of the senatorial district that I represent, that is Delta South Senatorial District, I want to say, may the soul of the great Senator David Convener Brigidi rest in perfect peace.
Colleagues, we go to the prayer. Prayer 1, observe 1 minute silence in his honor. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. As have it. And prayer 2, revisit the resolution of the 7th Senate on immortalization of senators for further legislative actions. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. As have it. Can we stand up to observe the 1 minute silence? His judges will rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
Yes, I thought you were going to. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the National Housing Fund Act, Cap N45, LFN 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Housing Fund Act, Cap N45, LFN 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2018, HB 1077, first reading.
National Housing Fund Act Cap N45 LFN 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2018 HB 1077. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Magnus Abe on the Procurement Act 2007, Amendment Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Procurement Act 2007, Amendment Bill 2018, SB 697, first reading.
Procurement Act 2007, Amendment Bill 2018, SB 697, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Stella Odro on the NDDC Act 2000, Amendment Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, NDDC Act 2000 Amendment Bill 2018, SB 700, first reading.
NDCC Act 2000, Amendment Bill 2018, SB 700, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate.
Sorry, Leader. I thought you wanted to do the confirmation of nomination. Confirmation of nomination.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of the following persons for appointment as chairman and members of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, in accordance with Section 38, subsection 6 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission Act 2000. The nominees are 1. Professor Bolaji Owashonoye, Chairman, Osun State, Southwest. 2. Dr. Grace N. Chinda, Member, Delta State, South-South. 3. Okolo Titus M., Member, Enugu Southeast. 4. Barrister Obiora Ugwedebia, Member, Anambra Southwest, or Southeast. Anambra South, Black. Anambra Southeast, take note. 5. Mrs. Olubukola Balogun, Member, Lagos Southwest. 6. Justice Adamu Bello, Member, Katsina Northwest. 7. Hannatu Muhammad, Member, Jigawa State Northwest. 8. Abdullahi Mekano Saidu, Member, Niger State North Central. And 9. Yahaya Umar Dauda, Member, Nasarawa State North Central. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President CNC to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President CNC be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved by the Senate leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC in a confirmation nomination of the following persons as listed by the leader for appointment as chairman and members of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences ICPC in accordance with provisions of Section 38(6) of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission Establishing Act 2000. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. This is referred to the Committee on Anti-Corruption for further legislative work and report back within 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, relying on Order 1B, I want to rearrange the order paper. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we recall that the Senate Committee on Appropriations is due to present a report today, but the committee is also to meet with the leaders of the security agencies at 12 noon. Therefore, I will make the amendment as follows. The sixth order of the day now becomes the second order of the day, and the second order of the day becomes the third order of the day, and so on and so forth. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC 2019 election budget. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Danjuma Goje, Chairman of the committee, to first move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Goje.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Independent National Electoral Commission 2019 election budget. I so move.
Senator Ledani.
Thank you, Mr. President.
My name is Joshua Lidani, representing Gombe South. I rise to second the motion so ably moved by Senator Goji.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Appropriation on Independent Electoral Commission INEC 2019 election budget. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Yes, have it. Senator, could you please kindly come and lay the report and then present the report. Senator Marafa. Senator Goji, present the report.
Order, please. Marafa, order.
Senator Goji, present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Senate considered the request by the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for the payment of funds in the 2018 Appropriations Act to enable agencies of government relevant to the smooth conduct of elections prepare for general elections. Mr. President, I have no attention. Marafa is disturbing me. Marafa and Alero are disturbing me too much. They are distracting me.
Distinguished Senator Marafa is disturbing. Don't worry, we'll carry on. Senator Marafa.
Legislative action and findings. The committee made and considered the request as contained in the letters of Mr. President and observed that one, by Mr. President's letters of request for environment/supplementary budget dated 11th July and the one dated 19 September 2018, the total request is the sum of 242,445,302,600 naira. Two, that the request covered the 2019 general election operations of the following agencies: INEC, as per the table, the one for INEC for security, National Security Advisor, Department of State Services, National Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nigeria Police, and Immigration. Three, the executive allocated the sum of 143,512,529,455 naira only for the environment in the 2018 Appropriation Act for INEC. Four, the Senate and House Joint Committees on INEC considered and approved the sum of 143,312,256,955 naira 13 kobo only, based on Mr. President's letter of 11 July 2018. And five, the request did not make any specific and categorical specification of where the environment will come from. Recommendations. The committee wishes to recommend one, at the sum of 143,312,256,955 256,955 naira 13 kobo recommended by INEC committee, and the additional sum of 45,695,015,438 naira, totaling 189,7,272,303 naira be approved as part of the development of 2018 budget. 2. Source of fund. That the sum of 189,7,272,303 naira requested for the funding of 2019 general elections should be varied from both the current and capital components of the Special Intervention Program captured in service-wide votes of the 2018 Appropriation Act as shown below, and be added to the sum of 45.5 billion provided for INEC in the statutory transfers. This will bring the total budget for INEC in the 2018 Appropriation Act to 234,507,272,393 naira. The breakdown of the allocation is shown, and therefore the revised, like I said, the revised statutory transfer in the Appropriation Act will now be 243,507,272,393 naira. It is pertinent to mention that the recommendation on this interim report cover provisions for the Independent National Electoral Commission General Election Operations. And in making this recommendation, the committee took account of the report of the Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committees on INEC, which met several times with INEC during the recess to justify the need for their component of the request. The final report, which will cover the affected security agencies, will be presented in the next legislative day. Prayer. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do consider the report of the committee and approve recommendations. Concluding, on behalf of the Appropriation Committee, we wish to thank the Senate President and the entire leadership of the Senate, and in fact the membership, for the support given to the committee. Thank you very much. I do present the report for your consideration and approval.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. This issue was only referred to the Appropriation Committee yesterday, and for them to come back to us with this elaborate report requires some commendation. So I'd like to commend Koji and his committee, and also we need to also commend Senator Nazif and his committee, who worked tirelessly during the vacation. And he's not here, but I'm sure members of the committee are here. So I send commendations to them, and I believe I'm speaking in mind of most of us to say that they showed dedication and patriotism during the holidays. Excellency, distinguished colleagues, you recall that the letter from President in respect of the election expenses came holistically containing the request of the various security agencies, also the request of INEC. And now that the issue of the INEC is settled, and we are told that the Committee on Appropriation will be meeting with the security agency this afternoon, and this being an interim report, I would like to suggest respectfully that both this report and the report of the request of the security agency be consolidated into one report, more so when it came as a single request from the President, so that we'll have a single report next week and be able to pass it as one single request. Because to separate it now may cause some confusion, because we are dealing with the request from the President, which came in a single letter. If we separate it now, it may cause some problem. So my suggestion, therefore, is that we consolidate this with one that they will conclude this afternoon and be able to pass it next week, so that we'll be able to send it to the President for assent.
Senator Guy.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I would like to also commend the Committee on INEC, chaired by Nazib, and also the Committee on Appropriation, led by Salikinyaki Goji. There are two observations I have, Mr. President. One is on item 3 on page 2. The executive the wordings and the figures are not correct. As I may read, with your permission, Mr. President, they said the executive allocated a sum of 143 billion 512 million 529,455 naira only. You can see the amount put in bracket is different from what is in the word. Yes. So I would, Mr. President, sir, I would request this to be amended. The amount put in words is not the amount in figures. I hope you have seen it. Okay, sir. Then the other issue I would like to raise, Mr. President, we took the issue of INEC budget separately because of the importance. So therefore, since taken separately because of its importance, we should not say we wait until the other agency's budget is ready for its pass. I suggest that we should pass this budget for INEC immediately and let them continue the process because we are in the process of the election now. And then other agencies, when they do their defense, their budget can come up. This is my suggestion. Thank you.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I think the issue raised by the Deputy Senate President is not in line with what the Appropriation Committee agrees. The budget for the security agencies is not required as of now, but the INEC budget, the funds are required now for the preparation of 2019 election. So we are going to discuss with all the security agencies. They have been invited today. In fact, they are coming by 12 o'clock. And we will discuss with them to defend what they have proposed. So the INEC budget should be separate with that of the security agencies. Even though the report came together, but the request came together, but we should treat them separately. Thank you.
Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, let me also join the DSP to congratulate the chairman and members of the Appropriations Committee for working expeditiously on the INEC budget. Mr. President, my view is that we approve this INEC budget. Even though it's an interim report, 1 week between now and next week is of essence, as far as I'm concerned, to INEC. The other side, for the security agencies, we should also approve by next legislative week. But because we need to scrutinize, our committee should work between now and next week. But we should be able to also approve it by next week so that we know that we have completely granted the request of the executive arm of government for the entire request for the 2019 general elections covering INEC and the security agencies. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Brigidi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barok Jimar of the North. Mr. President, I just want to help my chairman because I'm a member of the Appropriation Committee. In taking the stance we've taken in respect to the report, we took cognizance of the fact that there has been a lot of cry out there by INEC that there's so much delay in releasing money to them, and that every minute is very, very important to it. By this, we decided that we should approve this money because every minute, as I said, we heard, what they were saying when we were on recess, and what people of this country have been showing in terms of lamentation with respect to the fact that INEC has not been given the required money. Because they need this money to buy some, to place orders and so forth. That's why we decided that, look, this matter requires a high level of urgency. And so let's approve this, then wait for the head of security agencies to come so that we can hear from them, then give approval with respect to the request for them. Because their own is, monies for payment of allowance and so on and so forth. So I think it's better to look at this matter and consider the fact that it requires a lot of urgency. So we release this money, give the approval to go in line with the request of INEC. Thank you.
Senator Mohammed Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise to support the idea that we approve the INEC budget as presented by the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. For those of us who are members of the INEC committee, we worked very hard to get to the figures at which it's being presented now. You could recall during the recess period, we subjected this budget to scrutiny and came up with this position. As said by other speakers, this report is just an interim one. And we agreed in the Appropriations Committee that we'll first look at the INEC budget, which we worked as a joint committee between the Senate and the House of Representatives, and looked at all the presentations made by INEC. We looked at those figures one after the other and arrived at the final figure which was presented yesterday to the Appropriations Committee. In view of that, I support the idea that the Senate passes this budget today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Unless anybody has contradictory views to observation, what are you observing now? It's simple.
Your Excellency.
I answer you.
Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, my observation is that the request was 242 billion, but the recommendation is 234 billion. That means short of 7.9 billion. Where can we get the 7.9 billion?
Security agencies are coming. That's what I see them tonight.
You answer so that people can understand.
No.
Please, get up.
Share my report.
The chairman.
Read the report well.
Chairman will have to answer this question.
Distinguished colleagues, I think I better put the question so that we can make progress. There's just one recommendation, and the recommendation says that recommendation. There are two recommendations. One, the committee wishes to recommend that the sum of 143,312,256,955 naira recommended by the INEC committee, and the additional sum of 45,695,015,438, totaling 180,7,272,393 be approved as part of the payment of the 2018 budget. Those in favor of recommendation 1 say aye. Those against say nay. There is a recommendation 2, that the sum of 189,7,272,393 naira requested for the funding of the 2019 general election should be varied from both recurrent and capital components of the special intervention program captured in service-wide votes of the 2018 Appropriation Act as shown below, and be added to the sum of 45.5 billion provided for INEC in the statutory transfers. This will bring the total budget to INEC in the 2018 budget to 234,507,272,393. Those in favor of recommendation 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So, distinguished colleagues, let me join others to in thanking the chairman of our appropriation and also in thanking the chairman and members, particularly all the members of the INEC committee who, during the period we were on holidays, had a series of meetings to ensure that this report was ready. I want to thank them for this. Then also I would like the chairman of appropriation to please liaise with his counterpart in the House so that we all can be on the same page. Yes, chairman of appropriation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you and thank our colleagues for approving this recommendation. But I would also like to say that we have been liaising with the House. I've been speaking to the House chairman on appropriation. In fact, he's presenting the same report to the House today, because we're presenting the same report with the House. But I would also like to seize this opportunity to kindly request Mr. President to allow our members to leave now so that we will see the security agency by 12 o'clock.
All right, Chairman. So the members of the appropriation committee can excuse themselves so that they can continue with the meeting on the consultation with the security agencies so that we can ensure that by the next legislative day you'll be able to bring the report on the security agencies so that also we can pass that as well. Thank you, Chairman, appropriation. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Kabir Gaya and 106 others on the recent flooding across the country.
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Go back to your seat.
Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Kabir Gaya to move the motion.
Senator Kabir Gaya.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Kabir Gaya, representative of Kano South from Kano State, which present this motion, a very popular motion, will be co-sponsored by Stella Odua, James Manager, and all the 107 senators on this list as co-sponsors. So therefore, the whole Senate is co-sponsoring this bill. Mr. President, the Senate note that torrential rain have unleashed floods in different parts of Nigeria over the past few months, claiming hundreds of lives and damaging thousands of homes. Aware that so far, floods have ravaged 34 states of Nigeria this year. The states are as follows: Kebbi, Cross Rivers, Enugu, Kwara, Lagos, Imo, Kogi, Ondo, Jigawa, Taraba, Rivers, Katsina, Gombe, Imo, Bauchi, Akwa Ibom, Ogun, Anambra, Niger State, Katsina, Kwara, Adamawa, Edo, Benue, Delta, Yobe, Zamfara, Nasarawa, Ebonyi, Enugu, Bayelsa, Oshun, Kano, with also South Kano State and also South. Please do your job now. It's noisy.
Order, please.
Okay.
Order, please.
Yes. Kano South, which is my central area, is worst hit.
Order, please. Stop disturbing Gaya.
Kano South Central District is worst hit, with 14 local governments out of 16 were ravaged by flood. Most hit within local government, Bunkure, Ajingi, had lost over 200,000 farmlands and a lot of properties and lives were lost. In Jigawa State, about 10 local governments are fully involved in this flood. So therefore, the Senate observed that in the last 3 decades, the impact of flooding have increasingly assumed significant threatening proportions, resulting in loss of lives and property. Though detailed statistics are not available regarding the losses sustained by urban dwellers and villagers and the flood victims across the country. It is obvious from the available records that irreparable loss have been sustained by the citizens of Nigeria due to what has become perennial natural disaster in our country. Apart from houses that collapsed by flooded, schools, buildings, and bridges sometimes collapsed also as well. Marketplaces and farmlands are submerged for weeks and sometimes are washed away. Note that the recurring annual flood in Nigeria, especially arising from the release of flood waters from various ash dams or dams in Nigeria, have caused avoidable loss of lives in many communities across the country. Mr. President notes further that this perennial flood disaster have also resulted in colossal loss of properties and livelihood, with NEMA estimating that the loss is over 2.6 trillion naira to this menace. Aware that attendant loss of lives and livelihood from the available flood are led to this location and loss of further directions of impact families. The Senate aware that these flood disasters have worsened the crisis for internally displaced persons across Nigeria. Concerned that these perennial floods have over the years caused widespread and irreparable damage to the various ecosystems along the impacted areas, with some flora and fauna lost forever, and also introduced several strange vegetations that not only choke native flora but are usually difficult to control. Mr. President, the Senate concerned also that this flood have over the years resulted in permanent devastation of vast stretches of arable land nationwide. I therefore put those prayers, accordingly resolved to 1. Urge NEMA to send relief materials to the affected victims in Kano South, Central District, and other states of the Federation. Number 2, urge the federal government to convene a stakeholders meeting to x-ray the recurrent situation with a view to profiling a lasting solution to flood disaster. Number 3, urge the federal government, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to rehabilitate existing dams to be able to take in flood waters for to prevent future occurrence. Number 4, also commend the federal government for initially contributing to those areas, and also commend NEMA and Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency and other relevant agencies, organizations, and individuals whose efforts is creating awareness to lead the reduction of casualty in these areas. These are the 4 recommendations, but the 5th one, when it comes to additional recommendation, I will mention that additional recommendation, which federal government should provide special funding through either supplementary budget or other means to assist these communities all over the country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator James Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected colleagues, James, if your war manager, dealt us out. Mr. President, as indicated in the body of the motion, two of us, including my humble self, we are all co-sponsors of this all-important motion. Mr. President, I rise to second it accordingly. Mr. President, this flood we are talking about, everybody is aware of the devastating effect of the floods. The primary responsibility of every government all over the world is the protection of lives and properties. This flood has affected lives and properties all over the entire country. And specifically talking about my state, where I come from, and more specifically about my senatorial district, Mr. President. And more specifically about myself. My house, my compound is inside water. My compound at home is right inside water. I cannot go home now. If for any reason we say everybody must go home and come back, I have no home. I am homeless right now as we speak, Mr. President. I'm homeless. There is nowhere to land. The land has been taken over by water. And the other time we had this, as far as my life experience is concerned, was in 2012. And it has come again in 2018. Who knows what will happen in 2019? Who knows what will happen in 2020? So the thing is getting worse by the year. So something must be done. Not the prayers that have been said here, although I'm a good sponsor, but government has to do something. Government must do something. Otherwise, our people are in real trouble. Our people are in real trouble. Not the intervention we are talking about from NEMA. No! Not intervention. This thing is too much for NEMA. NEMA cannot carry this weight. Certainly NEMA cannot carry it. So government must come together. And people must put heads together, experts must put heads together to know what is the source of this problem. Where is this problem coming from? So that we'll put it in the board. We didn't put it in the board. Otherwise, we are, Mr. President, we are in real trouble. Very big one, very big one. And if we're not careful, it will consume all of us. This is like the biblical Noah flood. The way it is coming. If Christ not a baby, the world is about to come to an end. I hope and pray against it. This world must not come to an end. I hope and pray about it. Oh yes, this world must not come to an end. Because the way it is coming every year, the thing is coming up so it is dangerous, and it is not one that somebody human beings must pray for. Mr. President, there is a problem somewhere, and this problem must be cured. There is a problem. Government must identify where this problem is coming from. If it is a problem outside this country, we must go there to solve it. If it's a problem about this country, we must be in it to solve it. That is the only way by which we will get out of it. Mr. President, on behalf of my people, on behalf of the people that I represent, we are suffering. Mr. President, we are in real trouble, sir. We are in real trouble. Something must be done. Thank you, Mr. President, for
Senator Gumel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdullah Gumel. I come from Jigawa, northwest of Jigawa State. Mr. President, like the two speakers have spoken on this flooding, in fact, the problem is multidimensional because there are coastal flooding, like Senator James Manager has said, and we come from a Savannah region where we have this seasonal flooding. Like what happened in my constituency, specifically in Ringim and the Taura local government of Jigawa State. We have this, we are in the Savannah, and we have this seasonal flooding which is recurring every year. So in this particular instance, Mr. President, we lost about 7 people were killed, and about 200 houses were submerged and collapsed. Jigawa State is one of the states where the federal government is concentrating on rice farming, and a lot of rice fields were submerged and destroyed. So, Mr. President, I wanted to come on with a separate motion, but you advised us to consolidate the motion. This is the more reason why we are speaking under the consolidated motion. I agree with all the prayers Senator Kabiru Gaya and Senator James Manager advances. I just wanted to add that the people of Jigawa State especially the affected two local governments, they need urgent relief of food and clothing and materials to start building the houses which were destroyed. So, Mr. President, I wanted to add some prayers to go with the one that we agreed on, that the federal government should direct National Emergency Agency and other relevant agencies to make relief items available to all the communities affected by this disaster in the two local governments of Lingim and Taura in Jigawa State. And at the end, maybe because of several deaths, Mr. President, at the end of the contribution of all my distinguished colleagues, that we should observe a minute silence in honor of the people who lost their lives due to this flood. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, this is a very, very important motion. I come from a state where that is basically on land, and we don't have very major rivers. But right now, most of the homes are submerged in water. I travel every time between Lokoja and Ekiti. When you go now, just after the tributary of River Niger, you will find just roofs on top of water. In fact, there is an edifice put there by the governor of Kogi State. It is water for everyone, and it's already floating on water. And that is how bad the flood is. Right now, Mr. President, he brings reptiles, all sorts of things, into homes, scorpions, snakes, crocodiles are washed into homes, and they become very, very dangerous. But it must be that there is something we're doing that is still very wrong, and we've not been able to put our finger on the right button, because this is a perennial issue, and it comes every time, and we keep lamenting about it. I believe, Mr. President, the major thing to do right now is what we have in the second prayer. There has to be a major stakeholder meeting arranged by this Senate, whereby everyone involved, whether in environment, whether in health, whether in water resources, must come together, sit, and see what we're going to do. Because when you ask, they say dams have just been opened, and that is why water is much more than normal. The rains are here. We need to do a thorough job of convoking a stakeholders meeting that will deal with this, because people are in serious agony and no one is there to give them respite. Their only hope is that this Senate will do something very major about floods. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, you will recall that last year, at exactly this time, I presented a motion on this very issue. And next year also, I presume that the same thing will happen. The issue is that we are looking at the consequences, the outcomes, not at the causes. The causes are three. The first one is that over the years, I think since colonial rule, with the exception of the attempt that have been made under late El Adwa administration to drag the river Niger, the entire river channels of the country have been left as they are. As a result of this, all the river channels of this country have silted up.
the streams have silted up. Therefore, any rain or water that comes through them is virtually going to overflow into people's farmlands, houses, and properties. Mr. President, we also realize that our dams have also silted up. Therefore, they are incapable of storing any significant amount of water. So any excess water above what their intake can take will already, you have to open the spillways so that they will go out to do the same kind of thing. So this is a problem that is annual, and it will remain so unless we sit down and find a comprehensive solution to these issues. Now, to find a comprehensive solution to these issues, Mr. President, we have to first of all look into the institutional arrangement. Like the minority leader has said, there must be a comprehensive arrangement by all the institutions that are involved in water resources management in this country, so that we come together to find out the real ways and means of really addressing the causes, that are all over this country. The entire river channels and water blockages and channels have been blocked. So we need to really sit down a comprehensive assessment of the causes so that we can be able to come up with solutions. Otherwise, any kind of assistance by NEMA or anything, these are just palliatives. They will continue. Every year will address the same kind of issues. So, Mr. President, I suggest as follows, that we must have a space or a committee, an ad hoc committee, to address the issue of the National Water Resources Bill that has been submitted to the National Assembly by the government, so that we can be able to really and objectively assess this bill in terms of the ownership of the rivers, the responsibility that have people for managing them, who owns what, and who has the responsibility for what. We must make sure that we dredge all the river channels in this country so that the water that comes through will flow relatively. We must address the issue of dam siltation so that we can take care of this issue. So the issue of management has to be done properly so that we can address the issues of management in such a way that we apportion responsibilities for the federal government, for the state government, for local governments, for communities, and for private sector users. And also, Mr. President, we have to address the issue of National Water Resources Management Regulatory Commission, a commission, that really comes up with code of conduct and sanctions. This is not an issue that you can address just perfunctorily. It's an issue that you have to go to the roots, and all the institutions that are concerned with water management have to be brought into. This is one central thing that it's just like developing road network. We are talking about our roads are bad and we have to do the road network. Our water systems are equally bad. Imagine the number of people who die on the roads. Now the number of people who die as a result of floods are even more than the number of people who die on our roads. Therefore, Mr. President, we have to sit up. This Senate must find a ways and means of, even if it means setting up an ad hoc committee, to really look at this issue comprehensively so that we can be able to come up with a position that will now address to the government so that proper permanent solution can be found to this challenge. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Samegu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sam Egu, representing Ebonyi North. Mr. President, what is happening now is nothing but climate change. It is climatic to the extent that there is nothing anybody can do about it now. That is the truth of the matter. It is a world phenomenon. This climatic change is due principally due to the activities of man that has proliferated the ozone layer. And that is why this rain, torrential rain, will continue to be a perennial issue. Mr. President, the truth of the matter is that we have entered a very terrible situation the world over. This rain must continue to come year in and year out. There's nothing anybody can do about it. It's beyond man. The only thing we can do as a government is to enlighten our people on where to build their houses. Incidentally, some people may have to relocate, especially those living close to the rivers, the lowlands. They have to relocate, otherwise they will continue to suffer this, and government will again continue a fire brigade approach. And by that, we have lost a lot of human beings. In Ebonyi State, we have suffered this almost every year. Almost all the towns in Izi, in Ikwo, in Afikpo, is an issue that, in fact, farmlands and lives have been lost. I therefore want that support this suggestion that the critical stakeholders must meet. And the essence of the meeting is to now find a way to educate our people, advocacy, areas that people have to avoid, areas that people may have to relocate, and the activities that will give rise to this climate change may have to be discouraged. This is the truth of the matter. Anything outside that, we're just wasting our time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Poker. Mr. President, Senator Poker Emmanuel is my name by Elsa Central. I want to lead my voice into this debate. Mr. President, as I speak, Bayelsa is totally submerged.
That is water.
And it's true, 3/4 of Bayelsa is water. For some of you that have been to my guest house, if you go now, you'll take a cane in moving to my guest house. My hotel is equally flooded. That is very specific. And it's a very serious issue. Yes, I agree with the last speaker who mentioned climatic change. It's true, no way we cannot run away from that fact. But besides that, Mr. President, for some of us that are living in riverine areas, most of our rivers are silted, so that the rivers cannot contain the volume of water that originally they were containing. So water has to find its own level. I agree in total with that idea that there must be a concerted effort by experts. Call it Ministry of Water, Ministry of Environment. People must come together to have a roadmap. But this is annual. Flood must definitely come. Flood was coming before now. I agree to the fact that population has equally posed a problem. That some of these areas that hitherto people were not building upon. Presently, you see building cropping up in such areas. The planning environment, the planning department must rise up to the occasion because it's an annual issue. And if you go home now, a lot of people are stranded. Mr. President, if you look at the calls I receive, where do I go, where do I go? Government actually has to do some intermediary steps to take by providing shelter to some people that are stranded. There are some people that are living on the road without even anything over their head. You see small children. In fact, I was scared of one. When I attempted to drive to my guest house, I saw a child inside the water. So, Mr. President, apart from the permanent solution we will provide, that these technical ministries must come together, not individual effort. We require collective effort for them to have a roadmap. Government has to plan ahead of time. NEMA is doing a little. NEMA is doing their best. But like someone mentioned, the present problem is beyond NEMA's capabilities. Because they cannot even contain the problem within a state. Talk about 14 states now. But you go to these states, provisions are not being made for shelter for people that are suffering from this hazard. I wonder if we are suffering from this national hazard that develops nation like we see the present hurricane going around in US. But government must stand to it. So in as much as I enjoin others, for us to have a permanent solution, government must rise up. Government must come to provide immediate temporary solution to those that are suffering. The problem is serious, Mr. President. There are a lot of roads that you cannot move through in Bayelsa and indeed other states that are suffering. With these few remarks, Mr. President, I feel something has to be done seriously. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Dr. Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think the issue is very technical and at the same time something we really have to look at more comprehensively. We have had several motions in this chamber where we looked at the issue of flooding from various communities. And like distinguished Senator Yahaya was saying earlier, the technical component is what we need to look at, because most of the issues we've been discussing is the reactive component. We need to begin to be more proactive in terms of mitigation and prevention. And I think the issues to be addressed here is that what is the riparian network in Nigeria? The level of siltation in all of our streams and rivers is something we need to look at. But why are the rivers and streams silted? This takes me to the second component, which is the issue of deforestation. It may look unrelated, but the truth of the matter is that as we are traveling across this country, if you see areas where there is heavy deforestation, you'll be surprised to see roads that you are passing before that are clean are now being, flooded with sand, because the level of deforestation means that the forest cover can no longer prevent, erosion taking place across the area. And I think it is the movement of this sand that enables the siltation we see in most of our streams. And so if we have to address this, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we need to really set up a very high-powered and enabled technical committee that will bring in experts to tell us what the true situation is. Because a problem, for example, in Niger State may be affecting states down the River Niger plain, for example. And so it is interstate. There's no one state that can solve the problem as it is, because a problem happening in another state is the cause of what you are seeing in another state. And so we really need to look at it as a national emergency and take appropriate action to put in place proactive measures, because every year we keep coming to address these issues and these are the outcomes. So we need to go back to the causes, and to do this we need to do it in a proactive manner. I therefore support this motion and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Senator Kwankwaso.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, representing Kano Central. Mr. President, I am one of those who have been opportuned to work on various sites, constructing dams, canals, and other water structures for 17 years in Reka. And we are all aware of the climatic changes that we have today. One of the issues, technical issues that we have seen, Mr. President, is that in Kano, for example, we have got 23 big dams. And none of these dams is being utilized effectively. And therefore, over the years, all these dams are almost filled up through silting. And that is causing a lot of problem. 1 or 2 rains the dams are full and they start flowing. And that is creating a lot of problems downstairs. Mr. President, the other activities of state governments, local governments, and even the federal government, most of our drainages today in the cities, towns, and the villages are open. And our people have got this very poor maintenance culture to the extent that within few years, all the drainages are filled. Nobody takes care nobody cares to ensure that these dams or canals or drainages are clean. And there are many other issues, especially by our people who go down very close to rivers and other low areas to build houses and other structures. You can see them, Mr. President, as you are moving around the country. Most of the towns and the villages that are flooded, many of them are villages that are very close to the rivers. And I can remember in Kano, we selected 5 local governments and we tried to relocate all those who were living in those areas. One experience I have, Mr. President, was that there is a particular village that after building the houses for them with schools, hospitals, and so on, they refused to cooperate to live where they were living simply because they see the support of government, both federal, state, and local government, as a way of benefits. They refuse to come back, to come out of those places. They would prefer to stay there. So I believe the solution to some of this particular issue of flooding is multi-dimensional, ranging from the activities of federal government, state governments, local governments, and even the communities themselves. And unless there is awareness, unless there is cooperation together, we will continue to face these challenges. So, Mr. President, I want federal government, I want to recommend that they work with all those communities concerned so that at the end of the day, we can have a lasting solution to the issue of flooding in this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator Maravan.
Yes, my honor has taken over. Everybody get his own. Thank you, Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, Senator Kabiru Garba Marafu, CEO and representatives of our Central. Mr. President, I think earlier speakers have touched, quite frankly, most of the areas that I would want to throw a lot of light. Mr. President, Senator James Manager talked about government support about this issue. First, let me say, we all have to accept the fact that this problem is a global phenomenon. It affects everywhere. We talked about global warming and how it affects our seas, our rivers, and everything. So we have to accept that. So as a responsible nation, I think, yes, I agree, government needs to come in. But government needs to come in not in the way we always talk about it. We always talk about NEMA coming in to give palliative measures. NEMA is overstretched. NEMA cannot solve these problems. Mr. President, as a people, we need to strengthen our institutions. Mr. President, we need to do a lot of planning. Like distinguished Senator Konkoso said, most of these problems, especially in the north, you find people building right inside channels and rivers. And when you look at the quality of the building, nobody supervises. We don't have standards anymore. But, anybody can just walk into a channel, a river or something, start building a mud house, just waiting for disaster to happen. And everybody knows that this is what is going to happen. We need to strengthen our laws, state government, federal government. We need to have planning. We need to know where to build and where not to build. We cannot just continue to live a life like we are just coming from the jungle, where everybody can just do anything he or she wants to do. Mr. President, we need to look at our reservoirs. a lot of speakers talked about it. 90% of our dams are heavily silted, and they cannot, the dams cannot contain or reserve any water. So most of these waters that are supposed to be caged in the dams today find their ways into the channels. Then when you come to the cities and towns, what do you see? You see our dredges, our culverts. That is where people dump their refuse. Government will build very expensive drainages, concrete gutters and everything. But people will come and dump waste and everything, and at the end of the day, you find out that when the rainy season comes, the culverts and drainages are more or less useless. So, Mr. President, we need to look at all these issues, and I think they are far beyond these palliative measures. The issue of flooding is a natural, is a global phenomenon, and the earlier we walk up to that responsibility, look at all the problems and start solving them, the better for us. This issue of building this or that, I think should be avoided. Then we need to look at also our standards. Most of our roads and the culverts gets washed away. Mr. President, today it is almost a common thing, or you can say that nobody supervises the quality of roads we build, the quality of culverts we build. We have so many local contractors that are only interested in the contract. Mr. President, in those days when our roads are built, they are built to last 20 years, 30 years, and so on. Today you will see FEMA on the same road every year or almost every month, patching and doing everything. When new ones are constructed, you look at the thickness of the asphalt, and you know, even if you are not an engineer, that this issue, the road is being compromised. Mr. President, I think we need to wake up as a nation to look at our extant laws and look at what are those things that are responsible for what we are seeing in terms of quality and service delivery to people. Mr. President, with this few comments, I want to thank the mover of the motion, and when we come to the prayers, I think we do justice to them. I thank you.
All right, Najume.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Victor Ume. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity, because Anambra State was one of the 4 states that the government of Nigeria was quick to declare a disaster area as a result of these floods. The second sponsor of this motion, Senator Odua, comes from a local government called Obaru in Anambra State. And that local government is almost submerged in water. About 5 local government areas in Anambra State are very badly affected. And the Vice President had cause to come to Anambra State to go through these local governments with the Governor of Anambra State. Mr. President, yes, flooding is a natural disaster. And we are concentrating our energy so much on what to do to improve the lots of those who were displaced, and so on and so forth. But some of our colleagues had touched the main reason for this flooding, but I want to put it more succinctly, Mr. President. Most of our rivers and waterways have become so shallow. Sand has filled most of our waterways, River Niger, River Benue. Most of our water carriers are now very shallow. So with any heavy downpour, they overflow their banks and get into the villages and surrounding communities on the waterway. So I think while we are talking about what to do to help people who have been displaced, because in Anambra State today, we have more internally displaced persons camps than we have in the Northeast as a result of this phenomenon. I suggest that we pay more attention on how to remove sand in the bowels of our rivers so that our rivers can carry more water. Our rivers can no longer carry flood water.
once rain falls, they are easily overflooded. They overflow their banks and enter the surrounding communities and cause this havoc. We should find a way of providing money to dredge our waterways. Dredging will help this country a lot. The River Niger had almost dried up at some time, and those sand dunes in the rivers are still there. Once rain falls, they can't carry any more water. Water immediately runs into the surrounding communities. So dredging is something we must take very seriously to combat this challenge. There's no way we can stop rain from falling. It's a natural thing, but we can prepare to contain the damage heavy downpour can cause on our environment. And the major solution to this, Mr. President, is that we'll start dredging our waterways in the dry season. We don't need to wait during rainfall. When the rivers begin to overflow their banks, we'll start running around and start carrying blankets and mattresses to give to people. If we spend time and plan and dredge our waterways during the dry season, by the time we get to rainy season, the rivers will have enough space to carry water that will come into them. If we don't do that, it will become constant. So dredging should be a constant part of our management of this problem, so that we'll be able to keep more water out of the places they go to. The rivers will now have bigger bowels to swallow this water and channel them to the sea. If we don't do that, even if we buy rice, mattress, soap, mosquito net, when these things happen, we begin to donate mosquito nets and things like that. So let's spend money. Let the Senate and the National Assembly approve money for the dredging of our waterways, River Benue, River Niger, all the way. And if we do that every year, you can be certain that when the rains fall, the waterways can take more water and then channel them to the sea instead of going into the hinterlands. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Sir Binta, but let me please appeal that if we keep our contribution simple, more people will be accommodated. But still have a long list of items in our order paper, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Binta Masi Garba, Adamawa North Senatorial Zone, Adamawa State. First, I align myself completely with the mover of this motion. But I think it is pertinent to take our mind back to history. Excuse me, there is a river called dam called Lagdo in Cameroon, and there was a bilateral agreement between the Cameroonian government and Nigerian government. And that dam was built, started in 1977, and was completed in 1982. But the bilateral agreement, obviously the two countries have not fulfilled their side of the bargain. And most especially, once if that dam is being opened, the only communication Nigerian government has is that of the foreign affairs of Nigeria and that of the Cameroonian government. But the people that have the adverse effect probably are people from Adamawa State. And mostly there is a river called River Gongola, which transits to River Benue and ends with the Conference River in Lokoja. And until those rivers are seeded, probably we will still have the same problem over and over and over again. So the responsibility of government to its citizens is protections of life and property, and government of Nigeria must look into that. So about some months ago, there was a bill, I think, the executive bill on water bill that was almost controversial on the floor of the Senate. And if we need to revisit that bill, obviously it will help us to a large extent, because it has to do with all the channeling of all the waters and rivers within the federal government. And if we don't do it, obviously it is a global issue. It has to come over and over. And government must review its policies on water, and again, like I said, bilateral agreements or treaties that has to do with water. And again, sir, like the Lagdo River, it covers Borno, Adamawa, and Taraba. And we've been hearing all these things. And there are people that are living within their ancestral homes, which is within the riverine area. If we say they should be evacuated, that is when government now have to come in to see how those people will be evacuated, how they will be settled. But people with ancestral homes find it difficult to live there. But that is when government again has to come in on board to see what we can do on that. And having done that, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we need to visit the water bill so that we can see how we can tackle that. Once that bill is on ground, definitely most of these issues that we've been talking about will be taken care of. Thank you very much.
David Umaru.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is David Umaru. I represent Niger East Senatorial District. Let me start, Mr. President, by offering my condolences to the families and friends of those who have been victims of flood all over Nigeria, particularly in my state and my constituency. I equally would like to thank Senator Gaya for bringing this very important issue. Mr. President, I do not intend to dwell too much because the havoc caused by flood has been well articulated. However, I want to bring another perspective to it as it has happened in my constituency. In my constituency, there is a village called Bungu and Nguambagudu, Rafingura, Sabon Shata. One of the communities was completely submerged about a month ago, and I had the privilege of visiting them to see and hear their problems. One of the problems is that the federal government had actually given to the state government the sum of 2 billion naira to resettle those communities. And that money has been with the state government for the past 1 year or more. And the communities are still where they are, and that's why their village was completely submerged. I think I would want to use this opportunity to appeal to the Niger state government or to the federal government to ensure that these monies are disbursed so that these people are taken out of the area of danger. I equally would like to urge that this issue of compensation for the Zungeru Dam, which is still outstanding, that efforts should be made so that all the communities that are affected, by the project are moved out of danger zone so that they can be resettled in their communities. Finally, I think it is time for us to start to think more about renewable energy because that is something that will actually move us away from this traditional means of generating power through construction of dams. With that, I want to thank Mr. President for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tanyao.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Samanyang Wimo East. Let me join my colleagues to thank the mover of this motion, Dr. Gaya. Mr. President, yes, I want to agree that the flooding is natural phenomenon. I also want to agree that it's not only natural, but there's still man-made cause for this flooding. In Imo State, for instance, we have the Uguta Lake. Mr. President, remember last year, Uguta Lake was in a sorry state. Almost 20 houses were submerged, and we lost so many lives because of flooding. And we discovered that most of the problem we have is that people have built up all the flood channels, making them the place become very, very difficult for water to channel to the river. and that caused a heavy flood. So that is man-made. When we talk about natural flooding, we talk about the man-made flooding. I think that the critical thing here is what Senator Yahya, actually said, having ensured that there must be a stakeholders meeting where all the stakeholders, including town planners, including the environmental experts, departments, analysts, come together to look at the problem of flooding in Nigeria. Just like we had a problem of insecurity and we had a stakeholders meeting. I think it's important because this is not only state by state, it's become national now. It is important that the stakeholders must meet and find a way to be able to curtail this issue of flooding. Because like he said, if we continue to allow this thing every year, we talk about it, every year we talk about it, it will continue to happen. And once flood is started, once it has started, no going back. So I think it's important that we look at this issue of stakeholders. Well, because for instance, if in Imo State, for instance, we find out that most of the areas that are mapped out for green areas have been built up, and there is no access for water to flow. Just like last 2 weeks, an Okada man was carried away with Okada and died. Up to today, we can't find the man with his Okada. And we discovered that the manhole, the natural manhole that were built during the then Mbakwe administration have been built up, and nobody can have access, water cannot have access to the main drainage, and that the whole entire state is being flooded. So I think it's important we must look at this issue. And only who can do that are the town planners, the environmental scientists, experts, and impact assessment analysts. If they come together and look at this solution, Mr. President, that will go a long way. Because otherwise, we have overused NEMA. NEMA cannot function anymore because once every state has its own peculiarity. So I think it's important we look at this issue collectively and allow the people who are rightly, just like what is happening in India. Flooding in India today, the stakeholders have met in India to find a solution of flooding. Because recently they had so many deaths as a result of flooding. So I think it's important that there's a need for stakeholders to come together and look at a lasting solution to this problem. Thank you, Mr. President.
Aidoko.
Thank you, Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues. My name is Senator Atai Aidoko Ali. I represent Kogi East. Mr. President, Kogi State is one of the most devastated states in this flooding incidents in the country. Mr. President, more than 7 local governments in Kogi State are underwater. In my senatorial district, we have 4 local governments that are right now underwater. The people of Ibaji local government right now have relocated 100% to either local government, a neighboring local government that is a bit on the highland. Ditto to people in Omala local government, in Bagana, and so many local governments. Mr. President, flooding is a natural disaster. It's a disaster that we expect that it happens every year because of the rainy seasons. Mr. President, the problem is the lack of preparedness of government and the people to face this seeming disaster that always confront us in the face on year in, year out basis. Mr. President, it's not something that the solutions can be found. It's natural. What we need to do is to prepare ourselves to move from this disaster. And Mr. President, that is what is lacking. What we need to do is to increase the number of agencies that should meet this kind of disaster, or to increase the funding. For instance, NEMA is having the same level of budgetary provision year in, year out. When these instances increase every year, the flooding incidents every year increases. But the resources to meet this challenge is constant. So how can you tackle this kind of situation? So, Mr. President, I think that what we need to do as a government is to make adequate provision to forestall this natural disaster, which is unavoidable. There is no solution that you can profile right now that can solve the quantum of water that will come because of the climate change. The volume of water have increased, the seas have increased. As a matter of fact, Mr. President, the volume of the sea
sea has increased. Therefore, water from the hinterland has nowhere to even offload. So the water even slows down. It makes the number of days or months that the water stays in hinterland, it increases it. Therefore, the flooding is not something that can just wash away. So, Mr. President, I am urging government to increase funding to NEMA and other agencies so that they can mitigate the sufferings of Nigerians. First of all, you know, for rainy season, there will be no agricultural produce from this local government. So we must make provisions for food for these people. Even if they are in camps where they are being sheltered, we must make provisions for their basic needs. So when we leave NEMA the way it is, this is going to be a big problem. So, Mr. President, during the prayers, I will suggest an additional prayer, Mr. President, such that flooding should be declared as emergency, as a national emergency, so that funds can be channeled through different means to solve this problem. Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity.
Okay, we'll take a Barao and Clifford, and then we'll go to the prayers. You just take these two, please.
Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barao Jibrin, North. Mr. President, as a co-sponsor of this bill, I want to lend my voice to the content and prayers in this motion. Mr. President, food disasters have become a recurring decimal in this country. They happen every year. In my constituency, 2 local governments were so much affected by this disaster this year. In particular, Agapusa local government and Gorozu local government, as well as Shanono and some other local governments. I think there's something wrong somewhere. We ought to have known that this disaster will always happen. And so go to any length to make sure that we find ways to prevent them. These have been talked about by speakers before me, in particular my good neighbor. He stated the reasons, he stated things that need to be done to make sure that they do not happen. I do not want to repeat these suggestions that were made, have been issued. Mr. President, we also need to be proactive all the time. We need the appropriate agency need to forecast these incidences, forecast that certain things will happen. And this is what's happening all over the world. You have areas that are affected by hurricane, by tornadoes, and so on and so forth. But the appropriate agency always forecast these incidences, these natural disasters before they occur. And so, proactive measures will be taken to make sure that the outcome of these disasters do not affect people to the extent that they become helpless. They create ways to kind of make sure that the effects are not really so devastating. I would therefore request that government, we need, of course, somebody suggested that should be an ad hoc committee to suggest ways that the government will be prompted to really make sure that actions are taken to deal with this matter, like dredging of River Niger, and rivers and so on and so forth. So I think this ad hoc committee needs to be created so that we can deal with this matter once and for all. Because we continue to lament year in, year out. And these incidences of flood disasters continue to happen every year. I can't quantify how much have been lost, lives that have been lost. So many farms were affected in my area, so many people died, particularly in Gamasa local government. Mr. President, I support this motion, and I support the idea that our committee should be formed so that solutions, actions that need to be taken to prevent this from happening in the future will now be decided. I so submit, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Senator Clifford Odia.
Mr. President, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm Senator Clifford Odia, representing Edo Central Senatorial District. I rise to support this all-important motion concerning flooding in Nigeria. Mr. President, even though flooding is a natural disaster sometimes, there's need for us to sit down at this point in time with a view to finding solutions to these ugly incidents. Even as I speak now, Mr. President, over 20 communities in Eastern Southeast local government in my senatorial districts are still underwater. And I wonder why oftentimes we find it difficult to take a drastic decision with a view to solving these problems. Let me say, Mr. President, that our waterways, especially the main rivers, River Niger, River Benue, are completely seated up. The time has come for government to begin to carry out, periodic dredging of these channels. Because if we don't do that, we continue to have these problems, with us. Because on a yearly basis, it has now become a problem for this country. Our brothers and our sisters have been affected by this disaster. And even the relief materials that NEMA is supposed to provide for them is not forthcoming. So I believe that the time has come for us to now sit down as a country and work out ways to making sure these flood disasters are reduced. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Sorry, Gobe. Okay.
Yeah. I heard many people saying that flood is a natural disaster. But I think flood is both natural and man-made. It cannot be natural when somebody will come and build his house on a waterway. It cannot be natural when you build dams, you refuse to desist them, that is to desilt them. It cannot be natural when you cannot do anything, particularly when it comes to the question of control and the planning departments of our various states. Because water and pressure actually find their own ways. Scientifically, pressure is equal to force divided by cross-sectional area. So if you reclaim an area and then the cross-sectional area is so huge, the pressure will be developed and there will be flooding within that area. So I think that is something that we have to do immediately. Like I suggested, to have an ad hoc committee to desilt all the dams, because currently the dams do not actually take water to their own capacity. Most of them are only taking 1/3 of their own capacity. And there is also a need to dredge the whole waterways so that there will be flow, easy flow of water. And I believe in that area there is not going to be any problem. Currently, Chairman Committee on Works, I have a problem because in my area I cannot go there. We have to go round and round again before we can reach our town. So I think the first thing we need is to rehabilitate the bridge that is within that area and at the same time rehabilitate all the culverts. So I believe that we can do that. In so many areas we can be able to solve the problem. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Finally, Abuaka.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senator Ahmed Abubakar Mualledi, representing Adamawa South. As a co-sponsor of this motion, sir, my senatorial district, we have always annual problem of this flooding. Sheleng, Numan, Demsalamurde, which is part of this River Benue, we always have flooding because the Kiri Dam, which is supposed to have a power plant, which is not there for the past 40 years, and the Lado Dam in Cameroon is always flooding, and there is no way, because Cameroon Lado Dam is supposed to provide power to Nigeria, but the Nigerian government, did not purchase did not sign any purchasing power agreement with the country. So there's no way we will know. So it is only when the dam is flooded, they just open it. And there is no warning. When you communicate to Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, before it goes to your line, nobody will know. But we have Department of Hydrology, the Meteorological Department, which is there in Yola, and I don't know, there's no communication to tell people that, look, we are expecting this volume of water this year so that people will be evacuated. NEMA is there just to provide relief materials, but definitely the departments of meteorology and hydrology are supposed to be advising us exactly what we are expecting every year, because nowadays it is not done manually. There are a lot of scientific way of knowing what is going to happen. And the same thing, the Kiri Dam is supposed to have power plant. So the volume of water they expected there and the silting of the dam, it is not going to take this water, so it is just going to be overflowing the banks of the river, River Niger, River Benue, and then from Kiri, it will just go into Numan Dem Salamurde, which is always having flooding problems. And there is no plan for, evacuating these people. Even if evacuated, why are you going to take them? We have been making suggestions to them and say, look, since this is an annual thing, for the past 10, 15, 20 years it has been happening, it's better to have then emergency shelters in some places so that immediately it's happened, these people can move there. Since it is very difficult to evacuate people from their natural habitat to say, look, move to another place, unless if a disaster happens like this. So we are just pleading with the Senate to make sure that this stakeholders meeting, including Federal Ministry of Water Resources, Department of Hydrology, Meteorological Department, they will all come together, so that we give Nigerians a clear reason, these are our waterways, so that we are going to have a plan of actually how we are going to either drain it or silt it, or so that we are going to have a real water passage. The newer Inland Waterways Department is there, but it is not, it's almost there, non-existent, because River Benue from Lokaja to up to Yola into Cameroon, there's nothing like newer. And you find people navigating between Yola and Cameroon only in rainy season. And when Lado Dam is open, the speed of the water will not allow them even to navigate. So I'm sure it's better if these federal departments can come together and give us a plan of how to make these our waterways navigable throughout there, so that we have an easy access to people, and then to stop this annual flooding in these areas, because these three local governments are Numan Dem Salamurde is an annual occurrence, and it is also devastating, and there's no NEMA is not even there to assist, because you cry, you don't see. It is only people who can give them food, buy them food, give them mattress, and this is not what this will not solve the problem unless there is actual plan to make sure that these waters are actually drained, and then it has a clear path where to follow. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very distinguished colleagues. I have to thank you for your patience in listening to the various contributions during the debate. Well, this debate had to take so much time for obvious reasons, not only because of the magnitude of the disaster, but also the spread. Almost every state was affected, and our constituents expect us, each senator here, to be able to speak about how it affected the senatorial district. So it was important for all of us to be patient so that we're able to hear one another in respect of what happened in our respective senatorial zones. So having said this, I want to thank you again for your various contributions. We must also thank God that we do not have maybe hurricane or tsunami here. We're here talking about flooding, which is much easier to manage or mitigate. The regrettable thing is that for many years now, we've always been talking about this and having these debates here in this Senate. And each time we also have the same disaster. And unfortunately, it's going to happen again if we don't do something. So I just want to appeal to the movers of this motion, not only to ensure that the resolutions will be implemented, but also make sure that they contact the necessary agencies that will implement the decisions here to ensure that those decisions are actually implemented. I would like to also to appeal to the government to make necessary arrangements, to provide temporary shelters across the country, so that when this thing happens, at least people will have a places to lay their heads, which did not happen this time. Our people suffered a lot in various states because there were no temporary shelters. And then even in some places, they had to displace school children to put some of the people displaced in the primary schools and secondary schools, and it of course affected schooling in many parts of the country. So we must be prepared at all times in order to address, some of these emergencies. Every country must be able to make provision for emergencies, because emergencies are things that are completely unavoidable. So I appeal to our respective government, the local government, the state and the federal, to provide temporary shelters in case this thing happens, and equip them effectively, and provide food and water in the event that we have this kind of thing, so that they're able to mitigate the sufferings of our ordinary people. So on this note, I'd like to once more thank you, and then we'll now go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Urge NEMA to send relief material to the affected victims in Kano South Senatorial District and other states of the Federation. Those about this prayer say aye. Amendment?
Mr. President, my name is Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, representing Kano Central. Mr. President, it's not only Kano South Senatorial District in Kano State. So my amendment is urge NEMA to send relief materials to the affected victims in Kano State instead of South Senatorial District and other states of the Federation. Kano State and other states of the Federation.
Anybody seconding the amendment? Yes. Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, Adeola Olamilekon Solomon. I rise to second the motion as amended by Senator Rabi Kwakwanso. I so second.
Those support of the amendment say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the prayer will now read, urge NEMA to send relief material to affected victims in Kano State and other states of the Federation. Those support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the federal government to convene a stakeholders meeting to x-ray the recurring situation with a view to preferring a lasting solution to flood disasters. Amendment, Binta.
Thank you, Binta Masigarwa, Adamawa North Senatorial Zone, Adamawa State. Urge the federal government to convene a stakeholders meeting in collaborations with the Cameroonian government. In collaboration with the Cameroonian government to x-ray the recurring situation with a view to providing lasting solutions on the flood disaster. Because like I said earlier on, sir, River Niger and River Benue,
Is anybody seconding the amendment? Yes, Abubakar.
I have a second the amendment as to the fact that Senator Binta Masi to urge both Cameroon and Nigeria federal government to convene a stakeholders meeting to x-ray all the problems in the two.
All right, the prayer will now read, urge the federal government to convene a stakeholders meeting in collaboration with the government of Cameroon to x-ray the recurring situation with the view to providing a lasting solution to the flood disasters. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. Urge the Federal Minister of Water Resources to rehabilitate existing dams to be able to take in flood waters. Those in support of amendment, Ume. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Senator Victor Ume, representing Anambra Central Senatorial District. I suggest an amendment to prayer 3 to read, urge the Federal Ministry of Water Resources to rehabilitate existing dams and dredge the major rivers in Nigeria to be able to take in flood waters. Dredge the major rivers. The dredging is receding one way. To dredge
Any person seconding the amendment? Yes, Yahya.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully second the amendment that has been raised by Senator Ume, but with some minor adjustment to his to dredge, to rehabilitate and dredge the major river channels. Waterways. Major river channels. And waterways. And rehabilitate existing dams to be able to take in sufficient quantities of water to mitigate the effects of flooding in the country.
Binta.
Is it not going to contradict prayer 2 when you said X-ray the occurring situations with a view to providing solutions to flood disaster? It's different, eh?
Okay. Those in support of prayer 3 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 4. Commend NEMA, PCFR, and other relevant agencies, organizations, and individuals whose efforts in creating awareness has led to reduction in casualty level. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer, yes? Okay, we'll start somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. President. The additional prayer reads thus: urge the federal government to declare flood emergency in the flooded states. Yes.
Is anybody seconding that? Nobody. Next, this thing. Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, the additional prayer is set up ad hoc committee comprising of chairmen of the committees of environment, ecology, water resources to come up with comprehensive and lasting solutions to perennial flooding, ravaging communities living along the flood plains all over the country.
Anybody seconding that? Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir. Well, I second the prayer moved by Senator Alero, but I think we need to include the vice chairman of those committees so that there will be at least 6 or 7 members. If you chairman and vice chairman of those committees. That's what I said. Yeah.
All right. Those vote on this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. Yes, have it. Additional prayer say yes, Yahya.
I say set up an ad hoc committee to critically examine the water resources bill currently under consideration with a view to addressing the issues of water resource governance and management in line with the provisions of the Constitution and extant laws. Because we have a problem with that bill. But I think if there is an ad hoc committee to really examine it, because the issue of governance became the most important issue that prevented passage, at the time when it was presented. And then also the issue of how to manage, the management issue that are contained in that bill. Otherwise, that bill will going to present a lot of problems in this Senate. So I think it's important for the ad hoc committee to look into that bill critically.
That's the job of our committee. What would they be doing? Anyway, is anybody seconding that? Nobody, eh? Okay. Yusuf. You don't have additional prayer? Well, finish with that one. Well, finish his own didn't pass, so let's have your own. Oh, you're seconding his own. Oh, okay. You're seconding it. Okay. That will set up an ad hoc committee to look into the bill. We'll put the question, don't worry. Those support of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Any other word? Ashafa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Jenga Ashafa from Lagos East. Additional
additional prayer, urge the federal government and the state governments to work on preventive measures of opening up and cleaning the block drainages and waterways during the dry season. During the dry seasons. And the reason why I'm saying this is that that has always been what we do in Lagos State. During the dry seasons, we have what we call drain dogs, who would work to bring out all the block and the...
Yeah, but still, you still have your own flood in Lagos. Yeah.
It's gone down. It is not as if, you know, it's as what it used to be so many years back. So that's the additional. During the dry season, there must be preventive measures to drain all those channels. And this can only be done by the federal government and the state government.
Any person seconding that? Nobody. Additional prayer. Yes, Umaru, David.
Thank you, Mr. President. My additional prayer is urge the federal government of Nigeria to take immediate measures to ensure that monies released to the Niger State government for the resettlement of communities affected by the construction of Zungeru Dam be released to them immediately.
All right. Is anybody seconding that? No one seconding it. Okay, no additional prayer. Yes, Ahmad Abubakar.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The additional prayer is to urge Meteorological Department and the Department of Hydrology to give us up-to-date, on real time, you know, daily basis, the happenings, the river, whatever happens in their meteorology, so that we can have early warning signs of occurrence of this flooding. If you can have daily updates, you know, on either TV or on national dailies, it is going to prepare us for any eventuality. Thank you, sir.
Is anybody seconding that? All right, finally, Dada.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I remain Senator of Ogun West. I'm in line with what you have said so far. The additional prayer I'm looking at, Federal Ministry of Works to pay attention to the channeling of water from high volume water into low volume water by distribution systems. That is what happened in most of the United States. That they channel the waters from volume areas into low volume areas. Thank you.
Is anybody seconding that? Who? All right, thank you, distinguished colleagues. Senate leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on National Identity Card and National Population Commission on the screening of 23 nominees for confirmation of appointment as commissioners for the National Population Commission. The nominees are 1. Nwane Johnny Nwabisi, Abia. 2. Dr. Clifford T.O. Zira, Adamawa. 3. Dr. Chidi Christopher Ezoike Emenai, Anambra. 4. Barista Isa Uduburatai, Borno. 5. Navy Captain Charles Iam Ogwa, retired, Cross River. 6. Sir Richard Odibo, Delta. 7. Okereke Darrington, Onwabuchi, Ebonyi. 8. Mr. Eddie Olusegun Ayejina, Edo. 9. Ejike Eze, Enugu. 10. Honorable Abubakar Mohammed Damburam, Gombe. 11. Professor Uba SF Noabi, Imo. 12. Dr. Abdul Malik Mohammed Durungwa, Kaduna. 13. Suleiman Ismaila Lawal, Kano. 14. Professor Jimo Habibat Isa, Kogi. 15. Dr. Saadu Ayla Alanamu, Kwara. 16. Nasir Isa Barra, Nasarawa. 17, Barisa Aliyu Datti, Niger. 18, Yeye Mrs. Sheyi Adere Noko Olasanya, Ogun. 19, Prince Dr. Olana Dirong Gavi Iyantam, Ondo. 20, Senator Mudashiru Oyetunde Hussein, Oshun. 21, Mrs. Cecilia Asun Daboit, Plateau. 22, Dr. Ipalibo McDonald Harry, Rivers. And 23, Saleh S. Sani, Taraba. The single senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Wednesday, the 4th of July, 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Suleiman Hunkwi of Kaduna North, chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Hunkwi.
Mr. President, my name is Suleiman Hunkwi, Senator representing Kaduna North. But I wish to draw the attention of Mr. President and the Senate too, that this report is in a dual form, and we request that the Senate and Mr. President allow us to lay the second part of the report, after which we take the two together. With that, I move for the Senate to receive and allow and consider the report, and I so move.
All right, thank you, Senator Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand to support the motion that the second part of the report should be taken and then consider the whole report after. Thank you, Mr. President.
Dear colleagues, those in support of the motion that will receive the second part of the report and take them together, say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. Proceed to lay the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As we have indicated, the report for the screening comes in two bouts. The first, which we have laid and was received some weeks ago before the break, carried the screening of 20 nominees out of the 23. Two were unavoidably absent, and we stood them down, and they were not included in the first report, which was earlier laid. The second report, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, are the screening of those two nominees, addendum of the report, which is also added and now circulated. So members will see two reports, one after the other. Mr. President, I think page 1, 2, and 3 indicated the procedural methodology with which the committee took in screening the nominees, while on page 3 it is indicated the individual members and their respective states for who appeared or were supposed to appear before the committee. Like we have said, 21 of them appeared, leaving 2. And from page 4, Mr. President, to 23, details of those that appeared for the screening and what the committee has taken in screening those 21 nominees were indicated in the pages provided, as I said, from page 4 to 23. Mr. President, under each of the nominees that were screened, a report of summary of what the committee has given as recommendation is indicated on page 28 of the first report. And the recommendation goes, 20 of them as indicated on page 28, item 4.0, recommendation by the committee for them to be cleared by the Senate satisfactorily as has been enumerated, namely Johnny Mwabusi from Abia, Dr. Clifford Zira from Adamawa, Dr. Chidi Christopher Eziome from Anambra, Barrister Isa Audu from Borno, Sir Richard Odibo from Delta, Okereke Darlington from Ebonyi, Mr. Eddie Olishegun from Edo, from Enugu we have Ejike Eze, Gombe has Honorable Abubakar Muhammadu, while Imo has Professor Uba Mwabwe, Kano has Suleiman Ismail Lawal, while Professor Jimo Habibat is from Kogi, Nasr Isa Kwara from Nasarawa, Barrister Aliyu Detti from Niger, Yeye Seyi Olisanya from Ogun, Ondo has Prince Dr. Oladiran Iyantan, Oshun has Senator Mudasiru Hussein, Plateau has Mrs. Cecilia Asun, and Rivers has Dr. Ipalibo McDonald, while the last, which is being recommended to the Senate for possible approval for their screening, is Saleh S. Sani from Taraba. Like I have said, Mr. President, 3 people were stood down. 2 of them, as you could see on page 29, 2 were unavoidably absent, while 1 had issues as indicated on item 3 of that page. Therefore, on this first report, Mr. President, the prayer is that the Senate do confirm the nomination of 20 commissioners as has been indicated on page 28 of this report, while 3 are stood down for reasons that have been indicated. So with the permission of Mr. President, I will go ahead to take the second report, which has given details on the 3 nominees that were stood down.
Go ahead.
The 3 nominees attended the screening. 2 of them, like we have indicated, were earlier stood down, while 1 had issues, and the issues were to be reconsidered, which the committee did reconsider, and the report is laid out, Mr. President, on page 2 to page 5 of the second addendum report. And the summary recommendation is that on item 4.0, the committee, having thoroughly and carefully conducted the screening exercise, was satisfied with the qualifications and general performance of the 2 nominees of the 3 that were rescreened, and the 2 that were recommended for confirmation are Navy Captain Charles Iyam, retired from Cross River, and the nominee from Kwara State, Dr. Saad Ayillah Alanamu. While finally the third nominee, Dr. Durungua Mohammed from Kaduna State, was stood down due to the discrepancies and distortions found in the certificates and 3 different petitions forwarded to the committee from 3 entities: Ikulu Development Association, Southern Kaduna Progressive Forum, and Adara Development Association. Mr. President, the prayer is located on page 7 of that addendum, that the Senate do confirm the nomination of the 2 commissioners' nominees for confirmation for their appointment as commissioners to National Population Commission. I do submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Now, the one for Kaduna, is this stood down or is it rejected?
Well, we stood it down because issues bordering on those discrepancies, the committee felt we are not in a position to say whether the position of those certificates really are forged or not. So we were on a safe line. We stood it down. We requested at any time he can clear, he may go ahead to present those certificates that are definitely free from those discrepancies. So we felt the recommendation was for us to stood him down, unless if at the end of the day the Senate now considers at the end of the day to decide that he is disqualified from the...
Senator, can you guide us? Because the problem here is that if we say he stood down, it means that he cannot be replaced. So we need to take a decision whether to put, whether at the appropriate time put the question that his confirmation is stood down or that has been rejected. That needs to be concluded today.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I always advise caution when it comes to the question of integrity of nominees. What I would advise we do is, if we are in receipt of CVs or credentials that are of questionable disposition, we should try to verify. If there are universities within Nigeria, we should call from such institutions for verification. If it involves security thing, we should involve those and call those who are supposed to give clearance. I would advise that we should give this committee a little bit of time, maybe 2 weeks, to verify everything here, the authenticity of his credentials, and if he fails the integrity test, that is, if they are seriously compromised, we can reject it based on that. But we shouldn't just stand it down, because it is a non-movable position. When you say we stood him down. So, and that is also going to be, that will jeopardize his integrity as well. So we should be able to verify within the next 2 weeks whether those certificates are genuine or not. If they are not genuine, we should be very categorical, reject his nomination. But we shouldn't leave it as it is, because it is going to linger, and I think it's unnecessary. We should just go to what how to complete it.
Dube, is it on the same subject?
More or less on the same subject, but on the whole recommendation. As the leader rightly said, I think the committee's work is not only just screening. When you have documents that are questionable, it is the responsibility of the committee to go ahead to verify, as the leader said, check the institutions or call for verification, and therefore we can take a decision. That is the best thing to do. I wanted to suggest, having committed ourselves to accelerated consideration of issues before us, and the fact that the committee has done its job very well, and also considering the time that we have at hand and other outstanding issues that we really have to consider, I'm just want to suggest or move that the issue of the confirmation of the 22 that is non-controversial and clear should be taken immediately, and we'll proceed with other issues or things.
Is there any other thing to be said? Senator Binta.
I align myself squarely with the two speakers, but if you look at the certificate in questions, the TTC grade 2, he got it in 84, NCE 87, NDE 87, B.Ed administration again 95, then NYSC 95. So obviously the onus lies on the committee. They will have verified to these agencies of government to see if indeed he has gone or that. But stooping it down or stooling it down without recourse to getting those information is keeping us in the limbo, because it's neither is rejected or accepted. So I think they should do more on that so that we can expedite action on that. But there are 3 areas of contentions where one person is having 2 certificates within a year. Thank you.
Okay, Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I tend to disagree with some of the suggestions here, especially that of the leader. The moment we have a report and the committee has submitted their report and there's something outstanding, does it mean we have to wait? No, what I'm trying to say is that asking them to giving them 2 more weeks. Even that particular one, he went for screening. And the screening was not done yesterday. They have to 1 week, if I'm not mistaken, they may have done it for 3 months. And here we're still talking about giving an individual another 2 weeks. We can't function that way in terms of principle. In terms of principle, Mr. President, otherwise we will not be doing the right thing.
Senator Huku, can you respond so that we'll make progress, please?
Mr. President, now there are 2 issues here. One was a situation where the nominee attended a secondary school that was to last for 5 years, statutorily. And he attended secondary school for 2 years. How do I answer that question, Mr. President? He attended secondary school that was supposed to be for 5 years. He conceded that he was there for 2 years. That is one issue. The second issue, Mr. President, is a clear mutilation on the document. But I'm not in a position to say it is forgery. That's why we stood it down. But the Senate has powers under that condition to reject his nomination.
But you have to make the appropriate recommendation. If you hold this strong view, you should be able to tell us where you stand. We can't do your work. So let us know what the committee recommends. Yes, the new senator.
Well, I think
Senator Kaita.
My concern here, Senator Egu actually said that this was a report that lasted for almost 3 years. But let's be careful here. As the Senate leaders raised the question, it will be a problem if there is any suspicion as to why the committee cannot clear this person. And it's very possible for somebody to enter into a secondary school and last for 2 years. It's possible. It could be, I started a school, I moved to another school, so I have to report how many years I stayed in that particular school. So I don't see any contradiction in saying that as long as the certificate can be verified that he has attended that school and he has concluded, then there will not be any problem. So we should be careful here because the allegation mostly is that because of the interest of one particular committee member or another, somebody was not clear, so that it will not jeopardize the credibility of the committee.
I think this is just issues of fact. I don't think it has anything to do with emotion. It's factual issues. Gabriel.
You see, my concern on the other candidate who attended school for only 2 years is that whether he was able to take the WAEC examination and pass it. If he had taken his WAEC and passed with bright colors, there is no problem. Because there are some people who did not attend secondary school. They were taught at home, and then they also passed the examination. So I think we have to look at that kind of issue and then take it.
Senior leader.
So I would suggest once again that we save time. Okay, we'll go ahead. But let's take a decision on what the committee needs to do. Because as this, we have not advised the committee in the final manner. Mr. President, I believe that the committee has something to do a little bit more. Mutilated documents, we know the institution. You can get verification from the institution. 2 years in a secondary school, you can ask exhaustive questions. You can also invite the institution, the principal, to come and verify what happened. So I think 2 weeks may not be too much, but you can ask the committee whether 2 weeks will be enough for them on this particular item. The rest of the items, we pass them as quickly as we can.
Well, knowing how things work in this country, maybe we should give them 4 weeks. Yeah. Give them 4 weeks because they have to write letters, somebody has to reply, somebody has to come and get approvals to come. So, says the Hunkwi, if you give your committee 4 weeks, can you give a definite report? Okay. Don't support that the committee be given 4 weeks to report on this particular nominee. Say aye. Those against saying nay. The ayes have it. Senior leader.
Distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolves into committee of the whole to consider the report. Minority.
Minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion ably moved by the leader.
Those support that the Senate resolve committee of the whole to consider this report. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Snettume? Snettume? You are raising your hands. Go ahead. Oh. Okay, in the absence of any further comments, let's go straight to the putting the prayer to put the questions. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Nwanne Johnny Nwabuisi from Abia State as a commissioner for the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Clifford T. Ozera from Adamawa State as a commissioner for the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Dr. Chidi Christopher Ezoke, MNI from Anambra State, as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Barrister Isa Audu Buratai from Borno State as a commissioner for the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues,
Will the Senate approve the nomination of Navy Captain Charles Iyam Ogwa, retired from Cross River State, as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Sir Richard Odibo from Delta State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Okereke Darlington Onabuchi from Ebonyi State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. E.G. Keze from Enugu State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. A.D. Orishegun Ayejina from Edo State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve Honorable Abubakar Mohammed Damburam from Gombe State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Professor Oba S. F. Nabwe from Imo State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Suleiman Ismaila Lawa from Kano State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Professor Jimo Habiba Issa from Kogi State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Dr. Saudu Ayinla Alanamu from Kwara State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Nasser Issa Kwara from Nasarawa State? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Barrister Aliu Dati from Niger State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Yeye Mrs. Sheyi Aderinokun Oruchanya from Ogun State as a member of the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Prince Dr. Oladeron Gave Yaton from Ondo State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Senator Mudashiru Oyetunde Hussein from Osun State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Mrs. Cecilia Ashton Depot from Plateau State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Dr. Ipalibo McDonald Harry from Rivers State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Saleh S. Sani from Taraba State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the standing down of consideration of Dr. Abdul Malik Mohammed Durungua from Kaduna State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. All right. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Mr. A.G. Keze from Enugu State as a commissioner at the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader.
Mr. Chairman, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate reverse plenary for the chair to report progress.
That issue where it was said that somebody is having 2 certificates on the same date. Okay.
It has been stood up.
Yes. It's possible to have 2 certificates at the same date. Yeah. Because if you are doing a coursework somewhere, you are having finished the coursework, then you are getting your PhD, you can also have that one. The same day.
I believe we exhaustively debated that and came to a conclusion. And the Gobi was thinking about our welfare, he wasn't listening. So let's read that.
Mr. President, I second the motion that the chair do those reports revert back to plenary to report progress.
Dear colleagues, those in support that chair now report progress, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Distinguished senators, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on National Identity Card and National Population Commission on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as commissioners for the National Population Commission and approved as follows. One Johnny Mwabisi from Abia State, Dr. Clifford T. Ozira from Adamawa State, Dr. Chidi Christopher Ezoke from Anambra, Pastor Isa Audu Burata from Borno State, Navy Captain Charles Iyamogwa from Cross River, Sir Richard Odibo from Delta, Okreke Darlington Onabuchi from Ebonyi, Mr. A.D. Olusegun Ayejina from Edo, A.G. Case of Enugu, Honorable Abubakar Mohammed Damburan from Gombe, Professor Oba S.F. Nabue from Imo, Suleiman Ismail Alawa from Kano, Professor Jimo Habibat Isa from Kogi, Dr. Saidu Ayinlan Alanamu from Kwara, Nasir Isa Kwara from Nasarawa, Barrister Aliu Dati from Niger, Yeye Mrs. Seyin Aderenokun Olunsanya from Ogun, Prince Dr. Olanderon Gave Yatong from Ondo, Senator Muda Shuru Yetunde Shuzen from Moshun, Mrs. Celia Asun Depo from Plateau, Mr. Ipalibo McDonald Harry from Rivers, Saleh S. Sani from Taraba, and then we refer back Dr. Abdul Malik Mohammed Turungwa from Kaduna State to the committee for further legislative action. Is this a true reflection of what transpired Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Confirmation. Dear colleagues, we Senate confirm the nomination of one Johnny S. Mwabisi from Abia State as Commissioner of the National Population Commission.
Point of order, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it's now 1:45 and we still have some very important issues to deal with. I would therefore move that we suspend our order 13 to enable the Senate to stay beyond 2 o'clock.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
Dear colleagues, those in support of this prayer say aye. It's against say nay. The ayes have it. All right. Will Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. Wande Johnny Mwabisi from Abia State as a commissioner for the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate will the Senate confirm the nomination of Dr. Clifford D. Ozira from Adamawa State as a commissioner for the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Dr. Chidi Christopher Ezoke from Anambra State? Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Dr. Chidi Christopher Ezoke from Anambra State as a commissioner for the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye.
Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Barrister Isa Audu Buratai from Borno State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of David Captain Charles Iyam Ogwa, retired from Cross River State, as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate approve the nomination of Sir Richard Dodibo from Delta State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination? Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Okereke Darlington Onabuchi from Ebonyi State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. A.D. Orishegun Aejino from Edo State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mr. A.G. Keze from Enugu State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Honorable Abubakar Mohammed Damburam from Gombe State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Professor Oba S.F. Nabue from Imo State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Suleiman Ismaila Lawal from Kano State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Professor Jimo Habibat Issa from Kogi State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Dr. Saudu Ayinlo and Alanamu from Kwara State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Nasser Isakwa from Nasarawa State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Barrister Aliu Dati from Niger State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Yeye Mrs. Seyi Aderinokun Orunshonya from Ogun State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Prince Dr. Olana Deiron Gave Oyaton from Ondo State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Dear colleagues, will this Senate confirm the nomination of distinguished Senator Mudashiru Oyetunde Hussein from Osun State as commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Mrs. Syria Ashun Dekpo from Plateau State as commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will this Senate confirm the nomination of Dr. Epalibo McDonald Harry from Rivers State as a commissioner in the National Population Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Saleh S. Sani from Taraba State as the commissioner National Population Commission. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Finally, with the Senate stand down the consideration of Dr. Abdul Malik Mohammed Durungua from Kaduna State as a commissioner at the National Population Commission. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, thank you very distinguished colleagues for your patience, and I want to say congratulations on behalf of all of us to those whose nominations have now been approved and further confirmed. The issue of population is very vital to us as a country because that is the basis for our planning. So we must get our population right, we must have our statistics right, we must have them for purpose of planning, not only for today, also for tomorrow. So there's a lot of work to be done by this new set of commissioners. We believe that they will live up to the expectations, and the constitution is clear on the period for our census. We must ensure that that's adhered to, and we expect that now that the commission have been reinforced by this confirmation, that they'll get to work immediately and ensure that Nigeria will have an accurate figure and they have a credible census to enable the government to plan very well. So I would like to say congratulations to each and every one of them, and we expect the best from them so that this appointment will be further justified in the way they will execute their responsibilities. So once more, on behalf of the Senate, we say congratulations to these people and wish them all the best. Binta.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. So let it be on record that most of all the appointees or nominees of the federal government to this hollow chamber, the Senate, should at least the clearance from the security agencies, they should be open doing on the clearance, because it is when they are being cleared that these nominees are being, their names are being forwarded to us. And we've been having one or two issues on some of these nominees. So I think it's just for the security agencies to be open doing on the clearance of these people, so that we will not have other issues. That means in the future. That's just an observation that I'm trying to bring. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, as much as I agree with you, we must take responsibility because the issue of confirmation is given to us by the Constitution and not to those security agencies. So let's not shift blames. They only assist us to do our job. We must live up to our responsibility, and we'll take responsibility for fulfilling our duties. So that's why we are sending back this particular nominee for the committee. If they want to use security agencies or relevant institutions to find answer to the unresolved issues, they have to do that. So we'll take responsibility for our actions. Thank you. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that we stand down the consideration of this fifth order of the day due to the absence of the chairman till another legislative day.
Mr. President, I second the motion that we stand down the next item.
Yeah, colleagues, those in support that will stand down the next item to another legislative day, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the ad hoc committee on the accommodation, logistics, and feeding onshore and offshore of Nigerian pilgrims. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the ad hoc committee was laid on Thursday, the 5th of July, 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Adamu Alero, chairman of the committee, to first move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Do I go ahead?
Yes, Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I remain Mohammed Adamu Alero, representing Kebbi Center, and I move that the Senate should accept the report on ad hoc committee on accommodation, logistic feeding, etc., onshore and offshore of Nigerian pilgrims. I so move.
Senator Binta.
Binta Masi Garba, Adama North Senatorial Zone, Adama State. I stand to support the motion moved by Senator Alero that we received a report on the ad hoc committee on accommodation logistics feedings on onshore, offshore of the Nigerian privilege. I so second.
Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, those in support that this report be now considered, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Alero. No report? Senator Alero, where is the report? No, you cannot read it. Senior leader. Senior leader. You have to stand this one down first now.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, due to the unavailability of the report, I move that we stand down to consideration until another legislative day.
You say, can we sit down? Because of you are standing up. What's happening?
Mr. President, I second the motion that we stand down in consideration of this report.
Those opposed say aye. Those against say nay. The other senior leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I just want to make a case.
No case.
We're trying to take the report and you are saying something else.
Which one? The report?
I'm trying to present it and you are saying something else.
Go ahead. Please, can we start a little page? This will be done in 2 minutes. This is just a conference report. No, I'm talking of the one that's going on the conference report. Let's just typically take it. No, you can't give it because the report is not here. I'm talking of the next one.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the conference committee report on the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2018. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House passed different versions of the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2018. The conference committee of both houses have met and harmonized differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 87. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Distinguished Senator Matthew Urogide to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the conference report.
Senator Matthew Urogide.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Matthew Urogide. I represent the good people of Edo South Central District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate do consider the conference committee report on the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2018 HB 107. I so move.
So, Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sam Egwebonye not. I stand up to support the motion as moved.
Their colleagues in support that Senate do not consider this conference report, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Matthew Urogide, you can proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Senator Matthew Urogide, representing the group of Edo South Central District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to give the report of the Conference Committee on the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2018 HB 107. Mr. President, you may recall that the above mentioned bill, which originated from the House of Representatives, was passed on the 19th of April 2016 and transmitted to the Senate for concurrence. The bill passed third reading in Senate on Tuesday, 1st March 2018. The bill is to empower the Office of the Auditor General to bring about proper accountability in public expenditure of the Federation. The bill will also establish the Federal Audit Service Commission to cater for the staff of the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation. The bill will also repeal the Audit Act of 1956, Public Accounts Committee Act Cap P 35 LFN 2004, and Public Accounts Implementation Tribunal Act Cap P 36 LFN 2004. The Senate President on Wednesday, 30th May 2018, constituted a conference committee on the bill to interface with the House of Representatives to harmonize the bill. Mr. Chairman, I go straight to 3.0. The conference committee deliberated and scrutinized both the Senate and the House of Representatives versions of the bill. A total of 28 clauses had differences. 25 clauses of the Senate version were adopted, while 3 clauses of the House of Representatives version were adopted. Recommendation. The committee hereby recommends adoption of this recommendation as indicated in the tabular report that is attached. Conclusion. Members of the conference committee wish to thank the Senate and the House of Representatives for the opportunity given to us to serve the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Senator Matthew Brigidi and their colleagues. I would like to thank you all of us again for your patience. Before I finally put the question, let me also say that this piece of legislation is also one of our major contributions in the fight against corruption, because once the government expenditure is properly audited, and especially where penalties, are apportioned and enforced against those who have done things not in accordance with the rules, I'm sure it will go a long way to discourage corrupt practices. So I want to thank you again, and I hope that you continue to ensure that the proper auditing of government accounts is effected, so that we'll be able to do a lot of work in this area of fight against corruption. So I want to thank you again for concluding this piece of legislation. So on this note, I would like to put the question. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the conference committee report on the Federal Audit Service Commission Bill 2018, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Senate Leader. Senate Leader. No. Step down, stand down, the remaining one.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that we stand down the consideration of all other items on the order paper till another legislative day.
Mr. President, I second the motion that we stand down every other item on the legislative paper till another legislative day.
Dear colleagues, those in support of the motion, I will stand down the remaining items and another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate. The Senate is accordingly adjourned to Tuesday, the 16th day of October 2018 at 10 a.m. prompt.